Всем привет, ребята! Меня зовут Matvia. Это мой YouTube канал. What is up, guys? My name is Matthew. This is my YouTube channel. We are currently going through my Learn Russian series. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about basic conjugations for gender in Russian. So when I went over the alphabet, I am definitely a strong opponent of when you learn these phrases, learn them in Russian. You don't want to relearn them, right? Like, don't learn the word verb, learn gлагол, right? We want to know Russian. I don't care about learning Russian grammar, which is what I feel like a majority of Russian classes are aimed at. Who freaking cares? I just want to know the language. So anyway, as tradition, before every video, I go through my Anki stats, which today is very pathetic. Had a long week, don't want to make excuses, but I've not really added any cards, as you can see in the bottom here, and I've been somewhat keeping up every day, but not as much as I would like. So that is it for the Anki stats. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we are talking about today. So the last video we had ikrakaya, tvrdy znak, miyaki znak, and basically I said you want to remember these the way that they are, but you need to know there is a reason why they are conjugated the way that they are. And I said that was a topic for a future video. Well, this is the future video. So I got my little Word file here. I'm using Word instead of Notepad because I feel like it's easier to read when I increase the font size. And существительное женского рода. So basically this is мужского рода, среднего рода. So, like I said, we want to learn these phrases, and hopefully if you're following this, you are doing your Anki. So right now, I advise just to do single words, and I went through a little example. The front of a card, put like a simple Russian word, like a привет, здравствуйте, like a very simple спасибо Russian word. At the back, put the definition, right? Spasiba, thank you. Just learn words right now till you get up to like a couple hundred, and you understand the basic grammar rules, so you can start putting sentences together. Right now, if you do sentences, you're going to have no idea what you're reading. And that's the only reason I'm doing this lesson, is so you have an idea of how to put sentences together in Russian. It is fairly difficult. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it is way more difficult than a Spanish or some other languages that most Americans are accustomed to learning. So, anyway, in Russian, there is 3 different genders. So yes, your sexist, imperialist languages such as Spanish, or I'm sure French probably only does too. There's 2 genders, there's masculine and there is feminine. In the glorious Russian language, there is 3, because we are 1 gender better. There's actually a neuter, which is completely separate. So it's a full extra 1 that you have to remember. It is kind of a pain in the butt, but at the beginning of this series, I basically stated that's the way Russian is. It's like 3 times harder, according to the U.S. Language Institute or whatever, to learn than a traditional Romance language. You need to be willing to put in the effort to learn it. And again, like I said, this is srednего рода, which basically means like average gender or neuter gender. So basically, there are 3 genders. Now, how do we use this? What cases go into this? I talked about the case system. We have not gotten into it yet. For today's video, we're only going to be covering the nominative case. It's the only case for this video. Before, you're going to have to understand the basic genders before we move on to cases, because even when we start using cases, each case differs depending on the gender. So I would strongly advise, and I might put a link for this chart in the video description. This is the golden chart that I have by my side at all times. So I don't necessarily expect everybody to remember every case. You kind of need to have most of this chart remembered in your head, and there is a crap ton to it. But we are going to start piece by piece. So for today, out of this entire chart, this is all we're going to cover. So adjectives, nouns, just for nominative. So nominative case means just normal. So it's just the normal, unconjugated, doesn't really have a case. I guess technically it's a case, but it's just the normal. So what we're going to do is we're going to take nouns, we're going to take adjectives. Every noun is either feminine, masculine, or neuter, or I could say женского рода, мужского рода, среднего рода. It's one of the 3, and we are going to conjugate accordingly, just so you have an idea. Now I'm going to go through this real quick, just so you have an idea when you look at something. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty. If you want that, you can go to a textbook. That's not what this video series is about. So first, we have the feminine. So again, all these words, you need to know them. Существительное, So this is basically meaning noun of the feminine, like gender or role, basically rota. I would make a flashcard for all of these. So you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Женский, мужицкий, средний. So again, when you go to do these, a little trick. Again, this is conjugated. This is in the genitive case. I just know that because I've been doing this enough. Copy that. Go into good old Yandex. Paste that. Bam. Now you're in the nominative masculine case right here. It'll instantly pop up like 99% of the time. That way you don't have to worry about it when you do your cards. Keep them consistent. Now, if you want to do some like I do all my conjugations and the instead of masculine, the feminine or the neuter or whatever, fine. That's up to you. It doesn't matter. Just be consistent. I just do masculine just because it's the first thing that pops up. So anyway, let's just find a random noun, for example, and it doesn't matter. So let's say we do the noun Россия. So Россия means Russia. I went through that in the last video. Again, probably a good card to start with if you're making your 20 words for the day, which you should be doing every single day. Россия. Now, first thing we're going to do when we want to know what gender the noun is we look at the last letter. Последняя буква, the last letter. So in this case, it is ya. So basically, I have kind of like very baseline. Now, there are exceptions to these rules, by the way, and I will get to some of those. I'm not going to get to all of them. You need to be aware of that. But and ya, one of these is hard, one of these is soft, ya. Again, I'm not going to get to that in this video either. This is just a very basic, just so when you read Russian, you understand what the heck you're looking at video. So and ya. Россия ends in ya. That means it is женского рода. That means it is in the feminine case, right? So that means anytime I do anything with Россия, I have to do it with the feminine case if it's in its nominative form. Even if it's not in its nominative form, I still have to use the feminine case, right? So let's say I want to say red Russia. Russia is red. Red, communist, whatever. Krasny would be the nominative form. Krasnaya would be in the feminine form. So basically, we take the adjective, which let's go here. So red, it should be krasny. And you guys should all know, if you watched the first video, I'm going to make a playlist for this. The alphabet video that I made, everybody who's watching this should understand what this means. If not, I strongly recommend you watch that video first before going to this video so you're not jumping ahead. So this is krasny. Everybody should be able to read this. Krasny. So this is the nominative masculine form of red, right? So when we conjugate this, and you'll see how this changes, okay? So let's say red Russia. All right, Krasnaya Россия, okay? See how that changed? And now let's say I say red sea. See, now it's Krasnaya Moria. Well, Moria for neuter ends with this. So we're going to get a neuter a bit, but just see how that krasnaya, it's krasny, krasnaya, krasnaya. Now, ya and ya are extremely similar, so honestly, if you do get these mixed up, it's not the end of the world. And once you start getting into the genitive and prepositional and some of these different cases, a lot of the times the neuter and the feminine or the neuter, it'll share a different case. But if you do get these mixed up, it's not the end of the world. And even if you completely screw this up, like let's say I say krasny moria, like I use the nominative masculine. A Russian person is not going to be like, oh, you didn't use the neuter case. I can't understand what you're saying. No, they're still going to understand what you're saying. It's just for your own purposes. This is something somewhat simple, and it is very, very commonly used in Russian. In fact, it's pretty much impossible to use an adjective without knowing these rules. So that is why I'm going through them today. So anyway, you have Krasnaya Россия. That's our first example. Let's move on to another one. Мужицкого рода. So we need to have a noun that is masculine. So let's find a masculine noun here. Клещ. 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 See what this is.
Клещ.
Клещ. So this means mite or a tick. This is kind of an oddball word. I would not recommend learning this right off the bat. This is just for educational purposes. But anyway, let's say I want to say a black tick. There is a black tick on my body, right? So when I say black, it's going to be черный. It's not going to be черная. It's not going to be черная. Черный, right? All right, there. Черный. And now, realize how I was saying in the last video, this yeah, yo, sometimes they write as yeah. So when I go here and I go to actually like speak it, hopefully you guys can hear if I crank the volume up a bit.
Черный клещ.
See how it said черный, even though there's not two dots above it? I don't know why Russians do that. Yo is a letter. I might have to start like a campaign, like make yo, you know, a sound again. Yo is a letter. Don't forget me. But черный, черный. So anyway, that is basically the masculine conjugation. I'm going to copy and paste that here. I think that's a fantastic example. So, черный клещ. Still probably pronouncing that wrong. Okay, and basically what makes a noun masculine? And again, it's easy. You can go here, you can copy and paste it. And you can see right here how it says mужской род. Now, if you do your Anki cards for today, and you put down these in the nominative form, not the genitive like they're shown right now, you should know женского, мужского, среднего, or женский, мужский, средний. So I strongly recommend you know what these three words are. Like I said, we're not going to learn female, you know, feminine, masculine, neuter. No, no, no. We're learning Russian. We're not learning how to learn Russian in English. Screw that. So you need to know that. And if I look down right here, it'll literally tell me мужской род. Now, I can do this with any noun. That's the amazing thing, and that's why I like this. So переводчик, that means translator. Let me just copy that word here real quick. I already know what the gender is going to be, but for some odd reason, if I didn't know, now it will tell me. Interpreter, translator, again, it is masculine. Now, if you see a pattern here, that's because there is. The last letter is a constant. So almost all constants, again, there's a couple weird oddball exceptions, are masculine. And not only that, I think the E and ikrakaya are also masculine. And sometimes, we'll get to this in a little bit, the miyaki znak, the soft sign, there are a lot of nouns with that. It depends on the word, you just gonna have to know. So let's get into that right now. Гость, which means like a guest.
Гость.
How am I supposed to know what this is, right? Like, I guess I could go with the right there, but the last sound right here is miyaki znak. Miyaki znak doesn't really make a sound. It's not masculine, it's not feminine. If I go here, мужской род. So I'm still going to conjugate that. Let's say guest, and I guess for some odd reason we're doing colors, so we'll just stick to colors for now. The white guest. The guest is white, whatever. Белый, which means white. And then we would have гость, which means like guest. So this is белый. Now, for some odd reason, let's say this was conjugated, and let's say this was feminine, and let's say this was not masculine. Well, guess what? Now it would be белая. So basically, there's like a formula to this, and I don't like teaching languages like it's math, because a language is not math. And you're not going to remember anything that I'm saying unless you do your immersion and you start recognizing these patterns. Once you start reading stuff in Russian, it's very apparent, like extremely apparent. But until you do that, this is just like a math formula. And when you're speaking a language, you're not going to have time to sit there and think, oh, I move here and here and I do this and I conjugate things. Like, you just have to know it instantly. When you speak English, you don't think, oh, I got to conjugate, oh, it's in the past tense, plural, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not how you do anything. So that is basic conjugation for the masculine and for the feminine. So then we're going to get into the next one, which is the neuter. So this is an oddball one. A lot of languages don't have a neuter. So o and ya are pretty much all the neuter that you're going to see. Again, like I said, there's oddball exceptions to everything. Moria, which is the noun that I'm going to use. And again, you can use pretty much any noun as long as it ends with one of these two letters. Again, hard sound, soft sound, one's a hard, one's a soft. And we'll get to, there are some oddball conjugations too. So if I wanted to say Black Sea, it would be Chornaya Moria, right? It's not going to be Chorny Moria, it's Chornaya Moria, all right? We don't want to get a 5 on the 5 on the Zapadny Shpion ranking. So this is a really easy, some of these rules get very conjugated, yes, they do get very conjugated. They get very difficult once you start moving through some of these, especially once you get like, oh, plural, and there's a spelling rule, and this and that, and you got to drop this, and it gets kind of difficult at times. But this is like very basic in my mind, bottom tier kindergarten level. Don't be a zapadny spion. You know, you should at least be able to get your adjective conjugations down. There's only 3 of them. So we are going to go chornaya moria. So an easy way that I like to remember this, if it ends with yeah, if the noun ends with yeah, the adjective probably also ends with yeah, right? Same thing with O. There's an O in here, chances are. Now, again, there's some weird exceptions to this. I'll get to that in a little bit. That would also end with a yeah. So easy way to remember, this is the neuter. So again, quick review here. Женского рода. Чувствительная женского рода. А, я. Again, soft, hard. We'll get to that in a bit. That's a conversation for another video, but we will probably get to it. That is feminine. So there's only 2 letters you really need to watch out for. Masculine. Actually, let's switch the order of this. Make this a little simple. A lot more simpler, I should say. Ah, ya is feminine. O and yeah is neuter. So if the noun in its nominative, normal, unconjugated form ends with O and yeah, it is neuter. Now, occasionally you'll get an oddball with, I don't want to put that there, a miyaki znak. Yeah. Miyaki znak can go either way. Again, best way in my mind when you're doing your cards, and some people when they make their Anki cards, they will literally put in the corner of the card somewhere. We just went through that. How convenient. They'll put in the corner like feminine or something. All right. So, or masculine or neuter. And you know, in my mind, it doesn't really make much of a difference because after a while, like I know right now, and I can prove this to you, this is a constant. Difficult one. This is a constant. I can copy and paste that, and it's going to say muzhskoye rod. I almost guarantee it. Look at that. Just because after a while, these get pretty easy to do. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that. If you want to do that with miyaki znak, it's not necessarily a bad idea. In my mind, even in the real world, if you do screw up a noun, which there's not too many of them, but with the ending of miyaki znak, it's not the end of the world. People still understand what you're saying. So anyway, that is pretty much that. Now, there is some weird ones, and again, for some odd reason, since we're going through colors, sini, which means blue. Now, if you see here, most of the ones we've been doing have been chorny. Guess I'll just, there we go. Chorny. See how there's a difference here between E and E? So again, this is a difference between hard and soft. So this is hard, this is soft. When we have a soft like this, or if it's an adjective like this, it kind of changes things. So for example, if I wanted to say the blue duck, but let's say for some odd reason, let's pretend this is Duolingo and there's random word adjective conjugations that don't make sense, and I want to say the blue duck. So duck is uka. So first thing I'm going to do when I try to conjugate sini is I'm going to go to the back, uka, that ends with a. What is a? A is a женского рода. Okay, a. So right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the ending here. I'm like, oh, well, since it's a, you know, we got to conjugate it, you know, like that. Wait, like that. That is wrong with sini. So because we have that soft here, because it's E and that U, so keep an eye out for the last 2 letters here of the normal adjective unconjugated in its masculine form, nominative masculine form. You're going to see what I mean. So there's a chart that I will probably also link here. It's called Wikislovar. I shouldn't say a chart. It includes a chart. And I already have this adjective here, sini. And again, I would recommend learning падеж, прилагательное. I would recommend learning. So this literally just says adjective. Learn what adjective means in Russian. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to say it, but when you're doing your own studying, try to, again, the entire ARAP method is we try to keep everything in Russian, all the time. I'm not here to teach you how to say Russian stuff in English. That defeats the purpose. So when we get the прилагательное, the adjective, and we conjugate it, now look at the conjugations here. These look a little different, right? So there are a couple different types of adjectives. The main type is what I just showed you, like черный. So черная, черная. So that is the main type. But there's also another type. And синий, since we're just keeping with colors for some odd reason. Синяя. See, doesn't like that. It'd be синяя утка. So double ya. So for adjectives like these, I would keep an eye out for these, and they're very easy to see. If you see some oddball thing like this is feminine. That is a feminine conjugation. Yes, there's double ya, it is feminine. Now on the flip side of that, let's say I wanted to say the blue sea instead of black. Синее море, right? And if you're ever guessing yourself, hey, did I conjugate this right? Yandex is actually pretty good with that. So, синее море. You know, if I want to know how to say it.
Синее море.
There you go. So that is definitely a very good resource. Now we have one more of these before I end, and that is the plural form. Plural, so multiple. So let's say it was the blue ducks. Plural. There's ducks everywhere. Blue ducks. So there is only one plural. So for some odd reason, the plural doesn't give a crap about what gender you are, right? So at that point, again, if you're struggling with any of this, I would strongly recommend that you go to Wikislovar. There will be a chart here. They have this for verbs and different cases. These are different cases. So just ignore everything except for the first two lines. All this. We haven't got into it yet. We are doing the imentilny. Again, remember that. I would also add this to your chart, by the way, your Anki cards, imentilny. We're just doing the nominative case right now. So we need to know these four. And for this, синяя, that is what the plural would be. Do we give a crap what the ending, if this is a feminine or masculine or no, because now it's plural, right? So plural is just plural. It doesn't necessarily have a gender. So now it is the blue ducks. Синие утки. So let's say we do океаны. So let's say we have oceans, but it's plural. Basically, the way that you are going to see whether something is plural or not in the nominative form, for the most part, not always, it's either going to end with E, or, I guess I didn't really plan on covering this today, but it's a very simple topic, or E. So what I like about Russian is I can look at the last couple letters of almost any word. I can tell you if it's a noun, I can tell you if it's a verb, if it's an adjective, and I can also tell you what, if it's plural or not. So like English, view this as like S, for example. This is kind of like when I have multiple, like I have computers, I have fans, I have switches, right? Like we kind of like used S to say that we have multiple things. Well, this is like the Ruski version of S. So we have E, we have U. And like I said, this is the difficult one to pronounce. But when we have a plural, and again, this is a topic for another video, just so you recognize that for the sake of conjugations, if we have a noun that is unconjugated, and it ends with one of these, and when I mean unconjugated, I mean it's in the nominative case, then chances are it's a plural. So the plural rules, we can either have it in this form. It almost always ends with an E and a Y. Sometimes it ends with an U and a Y. So it could also be черный. And again, another way to double check this, copy it, paste it into the Wikislovar. We have черный. We can go here, черные. So this is basically множественные числа. So like many multiple numbers. Числа is like number. So черные, that would be it. So we have черный, черная, черная, черные. So a really good practice, and I don't like homework because I think homework's kind of stupid and not everybody has time for homework, but a really good practice, what I would do, even if you want to go to, I'll go to my homepage here, which is just like a generic Russian news page here. If we go to a random article, and let's see if I can point out what the adjectives are, if I can point out what the nouns are, I'm going to try to find something that's not military related because I really don't want to get into that in this video. And we're going to see if we can find out, again, barely even knowing the language at this point, if we can figure out what the gender, or the case I should say, because we have a neuter, because we're not sexist in Russian. if we can find out what the case is and what the gender is, if it's nominative or not. We should be able, after watching this video, to know all those without even having to look it up, with the exception of probably Miyaki-snack, or if there's exceptions. So, perfect. All right, so let's look at the ending here. Does this look familiar? This looks very familiar. So I might not know what this words mean, which actually, if I say this out loud, if you speak English, Centralny Bank, central bank, right now, right away, easy. Again, this is another one. Let's say I do not know what this word means. I can tell right now that this is an adjective, and I can tell right now that the noun here that is being represented is masculine because the last two letters are these. Centralny. So not every word, this is a perfect example, not every word's going to be in the Wikislovar. Actually, it is in the Wikislovar. I wonder if it was just spelled wrong. Not every word is going to be in the Wikislovar, by the way. Most of them are. So again, we're only concerning ourselves with this top row right now. That's it, right? So when we saw this, bank is a masculine noun. I know that. Centralny. And if I want to double check myself, I can go here. Muž. Muž, actually it means husband. Mužskoj rod means the masculine. So, and again, we have sredny rod, and then we have the ženský rod. So I can go here, and again, we're only concerned ourselves with this top row right here. So I can look here. This is masculine. This is the neuter. This is the feminine, and this is the plural. That's pretty much all there is to it. Let's see if we could find some other ones. Like I said, it's pretty fun exercise in my mind. So the reason, like this, for example, I can tell this is an adjective, as with the U, but it is actually going off spisok, which means like a list, which is masculine because it ends with the K sound, right? So it's pretty interesting in my mind. Now, there are some oddball exceptions to these rules. So I don't want you to just think that these rules here, just like English, there's some stupid oddball exceptions. Russian, there's less of those, but there are still exceptions to the rule. So vremya, which means like time. Now this ends with ya, right? Ends with ya. Oh, yeah, I go to my chart here, blah, blah, blah. Oh, ženského roda, it's of the feminine gender. No, it is not. If I look here and I look closely, sredny rod. So vremya is one of these exceptions. I would conjugate this to the sredny rod, which is the neuter. So if I wanted to say like white time, since for some odd reason I am sticking to colors for this video, you're welcome. Bielaya vremya. That's how I would say that. Now, if I'm doubting myself, let's say I'm typing something in Russian, I don't know if I'm conjugating everything correctly, flip it around, and you can see it does the exact same thing. Now, let's say I conjugate it incorrectly. Let's say bielaya vremya, which is completely incorrect. It's still going to translate it to English, right? But when I do a flipperoni here, it is going to conjugate it correctly. So vremya is one of those. Another easy giveaway is, what is the noun? So let's say, for example, mushina. Mushina means like man, right? But it ends with an ah. So we kind of have a bit of a problem here. Mushina. All right. Mushina. So if I go here, mužskoj rod, it is saying this is a masculine noun. But it ends with ah. What's going on? Like I said, there's some oddball exceptions to this rule. So like papa, for example, ends with ah. Well, it's the ženský rod. It is still a feminine noun. But man, which ends with a, mushina, mužskoj rod. So there's a few oddball exceptions. If you do have a word, and like I said, when you're first starting to learn Russian, I would kind of mess around, copy paste it, use the переводчик. That's a really easy way, copy and paste it in there. Like I said, even if you have some sort of weird conjugation, like right here, for example, this is a conjugation in a different case, which we haven't gotten to yet. If I don't know what this means, copy, paste. Oh, crap, this is the nominative masculine. This is masculine, and this is the nominative form. So that is pretty much it for today. Again, we have covered the feminine case, we've covered the masculine case, we've covered the neuter case, we have covered the plural case. There's 4 of them. You need to remember them. If you have difficulty with that, again, find whatever find whatever adjective you want. It doesn't matter what it is. And I would, again, there's a few different types of these. So going back to the sini and chorny example, but I would find them. This first row here on Wikislovar, extremely helpful site, by the way. I would go through that entire first row, and I would just make sure I don't really care about the adjective right now. Make sure you remember the endings. So you should be able to understand when you read a Russian noun what gender the noun is. And then on top of that, you should be able to conjugate the adjective according to it. So I think next week we're probably going to go over like vowels or something like that. And then I'll probably have a video for each one of the cases. And that's pretty much going to be it. Then toss everybody out to the wild, and you should be able to read or at least understand Russian sentences without issues. So thank you for watching. Do встречи and до свидания.